Good morning and welcome to Because Growth Matters, the podcast for leaders who are trying to do things a little bit different. Today, I'm joined by Steve, who has got over 3 decades of frontline leadership experience across enterprise sales, customer success, and education. He is a man who's moved from selling products to enabling growth through customers. He's known for curiosity, for humility, and a reflective style. Steve offers practical lessons in performance, resilience, and reinvention. He's currently on a reinvention journey as we speak. And this is perfectly aligned with Because Growth Matters and the Sales Management Development Program. Because if you're not morphing and you're not transforming, you're standing still and the rest of the world is continuing off without us. Steve Fiore, thank you for joining us. When you started off, did you imagine you would be where you are today? What is your journey? How did you get to having sales enablement behind you, sales success management? Where did you start?
So no, I never thought I'd be where I was at. And I never thought I'd be had a career in sales really to start. I spent most of my career in sales and growing up selling wrapping paper for the school, and you go door to door in your neighborhood. I was really successful within the 16 houses that I was in my neighborhood. But as soon as I stepped outside of my neighborhood, the doors would slam. And that was kind of my first experience of selling when you don't actually know the people. And I never thought I'd go into sales. It turns out it was really the only job that I had offered to me when I was out of college almost 30 years ago. And I kind of fell in love with just taking a customer problem and trying to solve it through a product that you're selling. And when I kind of evolved throughout my career, it was always that same concept. You're always trying to help a customer solve a problem, regardless of what it is. I spent a lot of time in property and casualty insurance, so trying to help them improve risk and underwriting and actuarial analysis. And then I spent some time calling on a major telco here in the United States as they were trying to deploy 5G across the country, and which city that they were going to pick and what order that they were going to roll out 5G and how much funding that they were going to get. That was all based on the technology that we were selling. So we were this enabling capability, and that's kind of where I spent the majority of my career. And then had the opportunity to move into some sales leadership roles and then customer success leadership roles. I fell in love with the whole process and the customer success area. And that's actually, I'm looking for a role now, and that's where I'm focusing my time and effort.
And if you had to explain your niche to an old age home, you were visiting an old age home, visiting your grandma, and you were explaining to her neighbor, how would you explain your niche to them?
To somebody like my grandmother, it would be, you have a salesperson that sells to the customer. We do everything to support the customer after the sale. The simplistic version is you buy a car and you need to learn how to use some of the features and functionality of that car, especially nowadays. There's so much electronics to it. Having somebody explain what's inside of that car would be something that my team would help somebody do.
So we've seen a growth in sales enablement over the last 5 to 7 years. It's almost hitting like critical proportions. Now this after sales service environment, not the delivery side, is also on the rise. How do we keep the lines clear between what's a sales function and what's a customer success function in your mind? What are the 3 things we've got to get right when we're creating this new role?
First, it has to be organizational alignment. The customer success leader sometimes will report into the chief revenue officer and sometimes will report into the chief customer officer. So really depends on where the person falls within the organization. But regardless, you need to make sure that there's clear lines of delineation as to what the roles and responsibilities are. And sometimes who owns the account. There are some organizations that the salesperson just sells new business. Then the customer success organization takes over from every point in time thereafter, or every customer action thereafter. There's other sales organizations that are much more involved on the day-to-day and own the account strategy, and customer success is basically a passenger in the car, but they should be a front seat passenger. They shouldn't be in the back seat. And ultimately making sure that the customer success organization is providing value to not only the customer, but to the sales organization. They provide value of understanding specific things about the customer that sometimes the salespeople don't know or don't have time to know because they're always involved in trying to sell the next deal. If you can make sure that there's delineation between the two organizations, that's where the success is going to come in.
So we've got this tripartite alliance. You've got sales who bring in a new logo or a new area. We've got sales success, and then we've got this delivery team. Who in your mind, or where in your mind, does accountability for the account and the success of it sit? And when does it change in your ideal structure if you're in a SaaS environment?
So I'll give you two answers. One was the company that I had worked for just previously. They had just created the customer success organization about 4 years ago in a company that was about 40 years old. So the sales organization always had responsibility for not only selling to the customer, but everything after the sale as well. So when we moved into more of a SaaS-oriented role, they split the function in two, so to speak. But the sales organization owned the customer relationship, or they own the account strategy. So if something happened in the account manager had ownership of it, but the customer success representative had responsibility to make sure that the customer health was there, that they were focused on retention activities, that they were focused on usage and engagement from the customer. And we were providing additional insights into the sales team and the account team as a whole as to where it happened. There's other organizations that the sales team is only responsible to sell the new business, and then it's a complete handover. So you really have customer account management, and you have customer health, and you have retention, renewals. So it just kind of depends on how the organization is structured.
If you had a magic wand and you could step back 3 steps, what are the mistakes that you would avoid making? So for someone that's listening to this, that's thinking of establishing this, what are the obvious 3 mistakes that teams make when setting up a team of this nature?
So no clear direction and no clear key performance indicators as to what you're trying to get accomplished. So when we actually set up our customer success organization, just prior to me starting in that role, the first 2 years were a complete disaster for us. The customers weren't getting any value. The sales teams weren't getting any value. The customer success managers, we described it as they were in the backseat of the car waiting for the account manager to give them direction. We had calls with our leadership team, and the customer success manager would call the account manager and say, "Hey, I need an update so I can inform my leadership team as to what's going on." That's not where you want to be, because that person's providing no value within the organization. And so we started kind of a methodical approach to focusing in on customer health and customer churn. And we took a set of KPIs, which were about 10, which were way too many to manage, and we boiled it down to 3. And everybody had a clear understanding as to what the main goal was, as to what we were trying to accomplish. And we focused every single one of our efforts along those 3 key performance indicators. It was around customer health, it was around retention, and for the specific thing that we were selling, it was around an AI innovation day. It was kind of getting the customer to get bought into what was new within the organization, what new was in the product, and how to actually best use it. And when we were actually focused in on those 3 things, we were actually providing value to the customer, and the sales teams were actually coming to us asking for insight on the customer, as opposed to 2 years prior, which was the other way around.
I can see it and I can almost taste it, why it would be important. But if you think of the value in an elevator pitch for customer success to a sales organization, what are the top 3 things customer success is delivering back? Now, we've got key insights into the organization. We've got perhaps opening doors that we wouldn't have seen before. But do you have anything else, or have I missed it or oversimplified?
There's just a couple of areas, and it really depends on the priorities of the organization. It could be customer retention. It could be incremental growth within the organization. It could be customer health, or it could be just general greater usage of the product, adoption of the product. So it could be any one of those 4 things And it could be all of those four, but just depends on the priority of the organization as to where they're focused.
What I'm thinking of, especially in a SaaS environment where usage is king, if you're not using the product, with our cancel culture, it's like, well, bye-bye. Thanks for playing.
Yeah, and that's really where the customer success organization really started to gain value in today's world, because in this new SaaS world, it's so easy to just say, no, I'm going to do a 1-year contract and I'm going to try your product out. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to move on. And the salesperson's already sold the deal. So what do you do around customer onboarding, customer usage, customer retention? Those are all things that fall on the customer success manager to drive ultimate value to the customer along the way.
What type of person thrives in customer success? How do we even identify people that make a good fit in there, and how do we grow their talent, in your opinion?
2 types of customer success roles, in my opinion. One is, I'd say, more of a technical oriented customer success manager, and the other is, I'll say, more of a business oriented customer success manager. If you're selling a very technical product, it does help to have a bench of technical customer success managers that could actually talk about the product. If it's an AI product and you talk about analytics, somebody that can understand that can talk to a data scientist, it would be helpful along the way. And then there's some where you just want a pure play kind of business oriented customer success manager, somebody that can understand customer health and retention and do all the things that kind of the core blocking and tackling that you would do within an account to drive better usage on the platform, better engagement, or maybe somebody that can get higher up within the organization. Sometimes somebody that's very technical doesn't like to call on executives, but a business-oriented CSM would want to call on executives. It's really finding somebody that's customer-focused and customer-oriented. From my experience in both seeing salespeople all of my life and then customer success managers over the latter part here, the customer success managers and the salespeople both have that deep passion for helping the customer. The one attribute that I would say that defines the two is the customer success managers kind of think about it more for long term and don't typically have that drive or edge around the selling, the closing the deal. They typically don't like that part of it.
They enjoy walking the journey with the customer without pressurizing them for a purchase order.
Correct.
Okay, I get that. That almost that zookeeper role where they can be partnering up with the customer for long, extended strategic imperatives. That's awesome. I want to sum up this section because you've got more to your life than this, and I want to dive into it. But what do you wish more executives understood about customer success? How can we make it more of an imperative across medium to large organizations? What would you leave them with thought?
I believe that if you truly want to take care of the customer and have your sales team focus in on actually selling, but have the customer success organization drive a continued value for the customer after the sale, that's where the customer success organization can provide the most value.
Are these people com incentivized or bonus incentivized to work best for you?
What I've seen is it's salespeople are usually like a 50-50 split. Customer success managers are typically 75-25. So a little bit higher in the base salary, a little bit lower in terms of the bonus structure. Sometimes they might have the same aligned if they're supporting the same account. Maybe they have the same quota, but their commission structure is a little bit different.
Excellent. So we're driving the incentives around where the account is going, but one is going to be on closing deals and the other one is maintaining or growing the account. Now, you said earlier you're looking for a new role. Currently, you've moved, you've changed, but you haven't been idle. You've started a new website, you've started a new function. Curiosity, lifestyle, reinvention is what I spoke about. And you've started a lifestyle blog that incorporates sensory-based experiences, lifestyle tips, and health and wellness. Just give me an elevator pitch about what this is, Steve, and why.
Yeah, I like to tell people I'm practicing for retirement while I'm looking for a job, because I actually found a hobby that I truly enjoy through this process. So I have had, over the last 5, 6 years, I've truly started to dive into products that are from small businesses or individuals because there's a love and a care and feeding that that person or small business provides to that product that you truly get a more sensory based experience. And as much as my career has been and probably will continue to be in the technology field of sorts, I believe that there's this counterculture where people are trying to drive sensory based experiences in spite of kind of AI and technology. This idea that if I can provide through my personal experiences products that I use and personally recommend, that's kind of how I started the lifestyle site. So I have about 10 posts so far on products that I've used: craft chocolate, loose leaf teas, Italian olive oils, hand blown wine glasses, and things like that that I truly have, that I use, I have a passion for. And then I share the story as to how I started and evolved to ultimately get to the point where I recommend this product. I'm also big because I have the site is called Rooted in Refined Living. And because of that broad nature of the what it encompasses, I've kind of expanded it into lifestyle and health and wellness. Simple things: drinking water and the foods that you eat, and doing exercise, even simple exercises like walking, and how to get your personal productivity up. And if you could see in the background, I have the two lights behind me that I have to shut off for video. But in general, I've very strong lights that kind of mimic daylight. So it helps with the personal productivity and my engagement throughout the day. So I'm very productive from the time I start all the way through to the time I end during the day. And then I take the evening off, and then I start up again in the next day. And that's kind of the process that I go on. Some of the lifestyle tips, I just posted some things around how to study. How do you invoke change within yourself? And simple things like, because people love comfort. So they love to do the same things over and over again, even if it's bad for them, but they love that comfort because your mind is telling you that it's comfortable. So how do you break that? And if you can do simple things to kind of change what you do: brush your teeth with your opposite hand, stand on one foot. You kind of just break that mental thing to have those neurons fire differently in your brain. And if you can do those things, then maybe you can start to implement other changes in your life.
Amazing.
But you have to start small, and brushing your teeth with your opposite hand is something that everybody can do. You do it hopefully twice a day. And let me tell you, it's really uncomfortable that first time you do it. I challenge you to try it tonight.
I love that. I think that is so interesting. Do you think this recharges us as leaders and execs and seniors?
I think if you can have your team have this high level of personal productivity by doing all these things, no matter what you're selling, no matter what you're trying to accomplish, no matter what your job function is, if you can be more productive in your day, and I'm not talking AI productive, but your just mental clarity, your mental productivity, your physical productivity, that can make a world of difference for not only an individual, but a leader and an organization.
We're in the middle of Mental Health Awareness Month, and specifically around men. And I hate to say it, putting us both in the same category, middle-aged men. Where do you see curiosity and well-being in today's society, and where would you like to see it going? Specifically speaking about the guys that are listening in here.
Oh, wow. I think that you kind of have to own your own health and well-being first and foremost. And there's simple things that you can do. If your spouse cooks, and do the cleanup, because your blood sugar usually spikes after a meal. But if you can walk for 10 minutes or do something for 10 minutes as opposed to just going and sitting on the couch, those make a big deal. It makes a big difference in terms of your overall health and well-being. And really just kind of take ownership to learn. Every person needs to start somewhere. And that's why I recommend things like brushing your teeth with your opposite hand. Because if I tell somebody to walk an hour a day, they're going to look at me like, no, I can't do it. But maybe I can brush my teeth with my opposite hand or stand on one foot for 5 seconds and just try those different things. And if you can do one thing differently, maybe you can do a second thing differently and then a third thing differently. My biggest change was probably 10, 15 years ago. I stopped drinking soda. And it wasn't an overnight thing. I was drinking a can a day. And then I went from a can a day to about 5 days a week to ultimately 3 days a week, then one day a week. And then I haven't touched a can of soda in probably 10 years now. I replaced that with water as one for the other.
That soda is such an interesting one. I've just gone through that on 6 months and I miss like a Diet Pepsi. But I know how bad it is for me. And it's people like you that give me inspiration to do it. There is a caveat. I do drink when I'm doing a marathon, or if I'm doing an ultra, then I'll have one or two just because it's convenient and instant sugar rush. I guess I need to do the same on beer one of these days when I look at the camera and I see there's a whole lot more of Daniel at the moment. So I need to start working on that. Tell me about change and performance multipliers. If you go into an organization where burnout and repetition is common, where do you think you can find levers that are easy for people to do? And I'm not talking about the toothbrush changing hands, talking from an organizational health and specifically in the sales environment or the customer success environment where it's high pressure all the time.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example when you talked about an organization that might be struggling. My last organization, and we went through a series of layoffs about every 6 months. It was draining for the organization. We went from about a 10,000 person company to about a 5,000 person company over about a 5-year period. Every day it felt like you were losing your colleague or somebody that you worked with for years, and that weighs on you. It weighs on the organization. When I was in my last role, we went and we actually did a reorg. We had people that we lost, but my team actually grew. They consolidated. And my team grew from 2 direct reports and 20 people to 5 direct reports and 43 people in the organization. And as a part of that, though, we also lost people at that point in time. And so I took over this new team and everybody was down. Everybody was dejected. And the first thing that I did after introducing myself to everybody was I gave them a call to action. And that call to action was to go do an act of good over the next 2 weeks. And that act of good, I said it could be anything from donating to your favorite charity to going to a food bank or to helping a senior citizen cross the street. I was like, I don't really care what it is, but you have to do something. And you don't need to come back and report to us what you did. That's not the goal, but you have to do something, or I'm recommending you do something. And I told them why. I told them that the idea of helping do something good for somebody else not only helps them, but it helps you. It makes you feel better. So I wanted to change the trajectory of the downward spiral that people were having and at least start to get it to neutral within the organization. And then we focused in on clear goals, what they were trying to accomplish. And they had specific KPIs that they were focused in on that were measurable. We were very specific as to what we were trying to accomplish. And we didn't measure, in my personal style, we don't measure by results, we measure by direction. So they knew where they needed to go. And I shared the results that we had as a company, as a group, where we were. And I shared where things were going well and where things weren't going well. And I wanted them to kind of feel like they were part of the larger organization, that what their individual contributions held were in support of something bigger than them. And when you can do that and bring people into the boat, so to speak, you start to get organizational movement. And that was key for us as we were going through the process. It was a simple undertaking in terms of the steps that we were taking, but it had big organizational shifts. And I'm proud that we focused a lot on the employee survey that we did as a company every 6 months. And my team was the best in our organization. We improved from one survey to the next in terms of what we were doing. And I made sure as we were doing that, I was very open and honest. I wanted to say, hey, you might not be happy. And if you're not happy and you give us a bad score, that's okay. But I want to know about it. So I want you to share details in the comments section as to why, so we can act upon it. And specifically that, I need to then follow up on it. I need to make sure that they understand if things aren't going well and they have a concern, that we do follow up on it, whether it's with a specific individual or organizationally, we address it. But we were very transparent about that between myself and my leadership team. In the organization with the most churn that we inherited, we actually had the highest employee satisfaction scores.
I really like that, because we've got a saying is that companies don't change, people in companies change. And my mic drop moment for today is we measure the direction, not the results. And when it comes to change, and specifically behavior change, that is such a leading indicator. It is such around here, the way we do things is, and if we're changing that is to that future state, then we're on the way. You've been very open in social media about your preparing for retirement, you between jobs. How's the job search going, and how does it parallel the sales process that you used to?
I think it very much parallels the sales process, that you have opportunities, and then sometimes you have a lot of opportunities, sometimes you have few opportunities. If you follow the process, everything will start to fall into place. For me, it's a very specific process that I follow. I have a very positive attitude in my approach. I believe that no matter what job that I'm going to apply for, that I'm a good fit for it and that I could get it. And then I have a specific approach that I follow around making sure I have a specific company that I'm looking for. So it's not only the job function itself, the title, what I'm looking to do, but the type of company, the makeup of it, and the company culture. So when I actually apply to that role, I believe that this is going to be a good fit for me. It's going to be the right job for me. So then when I go into the interview process, it's much more comfortable as I go in. I'm not trying to fit this square peg into a round hole. And then, just like in the sales process where you have an ideal customer profile, where you're making sure that your product fits into the specific company capability or company target, same is true from a job search process. I spent 28 years in sales and sales leadership, but I am solely only focused in on customer success leadership roles. So I don't look at sales roles or sales leadership roles. It also helps people when they're helping me look for a job, that they know what they're looking for and what they can help with. And then when I do get the interviews, it's a very specific process that I follow where I send a message ahead of the interview. Just like if you were in sales, you send an agenda to the executive. So why not follow that same process from a job search perspective? So I usually send this a day or two before, confirm the date and time. I try to show that I did a little bit of research on the company. I talk about what I'm interested in finding out about the company, and then I share with them what I'm prepared to talk about. So when I go into the interview, it gives the interviewer some direction, because as well as I do, there are many people interviewers that go in that just kind of wing it. They don't have a structure when they're asking questions. They just kind of have a feel for, hey, I'm going to like this person or I'm not. So if I can give some structure to the interviewer, it helps the interview process go well. It also helps set me apart a little bit through the process. To answer your other question around how's it specifically going, I got close twice. I got through 6 rounds on one job, and they hired somebody else who's a great company, just didn't work out. I got to 7 rounds at another company, found out I was the leading candidate, and then they pulled the job. So it happens. I'm kind of back to the drawing board a little bit. I got a second round coming up this week at another company, and just continuing to try to go through the process. But one, I find I love the process. I'm probably one of the few. I actually enjoy searching for a job and interviewing. It's kind of like selling, in my opinion. So I actually enjoy that part of it. And then I know that because I'm following the process, it's going to work. I'm getting about a 20% hit rate. About 1 out of every 5 jobs that I apply to, I'm getting an interview for. So it's just a matter of time. I know it'll happen.
Where I'm sitting in South Africa, our market, I think, is 100 times smaller than the American market. And just the absolute comfort that you have and the confidence, it's very different for candidates of our age group in South Africa or in this environment. And I just love your positivity. I love the fact that you're taking your time and you can cherry pick and get the right thing. And we speak it over you that you're going to find that place where you can fit in and you can make a difference. So
Thank you.
We speak
Thank
that
you.
one over you. And by the time we go to air, I hope you have big title and are doing good things. I'm going to ask you 1 or 2 more questions. The first question is, where do people get hold of you if they're looking for your service or they're looking for advice on setting up departments such as the customer success environment? They can chat to you.
I'm on LinkedIn. You can search Stephen M. Fiore, M as in Michael. That's the easiest way to do it. I'm on LinkedIn all the time.
And Steve is very quick to respond and free with his advice or opinions on these areas. So mistakes not to make or lessons not to learn, because he's learned them already. So that's cool. Then my wrap-up question is always, what's the 1% difference maker in your life? What's the one thing that consistently gives you the edge? And how can the rest of us learn or apply that in our own growth journey? What would you say separates you from the others?
It's all the things that I share on my website. It's that whole concept of personal productivity. So my focus in on my attitude, my health, the things that I do around walking and eating. And if I had to boil it down to one specific thing that makes the difference, it's sleep. And I'm going to give you a perspective on this. And I'm stealing it from a sleep expert, but I think it's the single best thing to approach. Everybody knows that if you get a good night's sleep, you feel better, or if you don't have a good night's sleep, you feel pretty crappy throughout the rest of the day. But the thing I'll leave you with is, don't think about sleep as the last thing you do during the day. Think about sleep as the first thing you're doing to have the start of your next day.
I love that. Steve, that's the second mic drop moment. Think of sleep as the first thing you do in your new day. Respect your sleep. Steve Fiore, thank you for joining us on Because Growth Matters. It's been really interesting learning from you and speaking to you. And I want to wish you all the best. I think we have to say for the holiday season, because when we air this,
too.
Christmas will be over, the holiday season, we'll be back at the Millstone. So have a wonderful time. From me, Daniel Robus, and Steve Fiore, have a good day.
Thank you. Have a great day yourself.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Because Growth Matters. If you found this conversation valuable, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate this show 5 stars on the platform you're listening from and share it with someone who'd benefit from the conversations. Make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. See you then.